Ime Udoka, the head coach of their team, actually get recently suspended for a full season to what we know as, an issue with having consensual sex with a staff member, but that there is more to this story that is not fully disclosed, but in the same way paints a picture that something happened behind the scenes, beyond, the simple transgression of having sex that, with a staff member that goes against the team's policy. So did you have any sort of initial thoughts to this that have maybe changed over time with recent reports? And, do you think the penalty is fair? And, what would you do if you're the Celtics? And maybe, what would you do if you're Udoka at this point?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of things to touch base on here. But at least with regards to like suspensions, right? I think it's hard it's hard for me to understand sometimes too, but it's like, yeah, a lot of suspensions, contracts, right? Like, it's not fair. Nothing is ever fair, just like with life, right? Not to be all like, downtrodden or cynical about stuff, but none of this is fair. So that's okay. Like, that's part of the thing. Like, we talk about Lamar Jackson, his contract versus Deshaun Watson, right? Like, is that fair? No, it's not. Model citizen quarterback, MVP, like, killing it versus some guy sitting on the sideline right now and he's not been convicted of rape and all, but it's just been a lot of shady stuff. And I think even his contract says that he has to use a masseuse that's part of the team, like can't go to some massage parlors, things like that. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, and another thing too is like we ought not to be thinking about I don't know why there's this whole idea that like the NFL and NBA or MLB ought to be this moralistic entity or association. Like, they're not. They're just people just like us, and I think when we put that degree on them to be like better people than us, because just they're more athletic and the best athletes of human specimens possible, I don't think that's fair for either them or us as a society to just judge these people as perfect people. Like, not everybody is Lamar Jackson. Knock on wood. Like, I hope Lamar Jackson, nothing comes out with Lamar Jackson or anything like that. But he definitely has handled himself as well as possible. Same even with LeBron James, off the court, right? So all that being said, nothing is fair. Suspensions aren't fair. It doesn't make sense that Udoka got the same level of suspension as fights that the Malice in the Palace and stuff like that. I know some of them got suspended for the remainder of the season just for that. And it's not even there was nothing on the court that happened. It wasn't sexual assaults, at least from our understanding. For me, and working the corporate world and everything, it feels like it has to do more on the legal HR corporate setting rather than it has to do anything with the more legality or what do the predecessors of suspension look like for certain situations like this. I think it has maybe a lot more so to do with having that corporate culture and all that, which is very boring. That being said, I would not be surprised if there was, Udoka was sleeping with, I think the biggest rumor has been sleeping with an executive's wife or something like that, right? And they definitely have been. I don't think that the Celtics have been necessarily handling it maybe the best with regards to anything like that, because if they were to deny that or whatever, and then it came out he actually did, then they would look bad. So, yeah. So I guess I understand where the Celtics are coming from withholding some information and, kind of being very vague about things and not saying too much. But I think honestly, at least the boring answer is that it more so has to do with HR and legal and all that rather than a full out, he did some dirty with some people's wives or whatever. So at least that's what I think. Otherwise, I think he would have been fired immediately or something like that if something like that really did happen. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was kind of surprised. Like, why didn't he get fired? Like, why did he get suspended for a year? Why is he accepting that? I think that a lot of those questions come to my mind because now it's like they bring in Joe Mazzulla, who's going to take over as head coach. He's going to do that for a full season. I mean, is there any scenario where Ime Udoka just finds his way back into head coaching spot? I mean, like the Celtics would have to be so bad this year, underperform to a point where they're at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, playoff standings, and they get, first round exit, something like that, where it's like truly shocking.
Yeah.
Where I feel like Udoka, gets back into the mix as their head coach. And from Udoka's perspective, it's just like what he actually did must be pretty bad, because why would you take a year-long suspension, sit on the sidelines with no guarantee that you'll be the head coach of the Boston Celtics again when you're just coming off of a finals appearance? You had just great reports behind you as a head coach in your first season. It's like, for me, I'd just be like, man, fire me, because I'll just go out and take a job with whoever. Like, I'll go coach for the Magic or the Charlotte Hornets or Portland Trail, whoever it is. Like, I'll just go find another job. And when I first heard the reports, I was kind of taken aback, like you were saying with Deshaun Watson. It's like, okay, we give Deshaun Watson 11 games for abusing 20 plus massage therapists, and we give Kareem Hunt only 8 games for domestic violence, and we let Tyreek Hill off the hook for domestic violence with his son and stuff. And it's just baffling to me, how some of these situations kind of work out with suspensions and everything else. But like, to me, what ultimately resonated the most was Matt Barnes actually put out a video on Instagram where he was basically covering his own tracks on his initial reaction to everything. So he first reacted the same way I am, where it's like, whoa, like consensual sex. Like, I know it's against the team policy, but a year, like, you got to be kidding me. Like, both parties agreed and this and that. But he basically said that, although it's not being reported, he had talked to sources within like the Boston Celtics organization. Like, it's far worse than any of us are thinking. So, it just gets me to like kind of thinking like maybe there was some harassment involved in this, or, maybe not everything was consensual, or maybe there was just other elements, other layers to this. But, it's hard to like fully weigh in and give like an honest take or opinion without all the facts. And because we're dealing in so much obscurity right now, it's like my ultimate takeaway is like, what are we waiting for with firing this guy? And what are we waiting for if you're Udoka? If the NBA is not going to come in and say, you're suspended further, you can't coach for this whole season, like, why not make yourself available to make some more money? Like, just generally speaking. And, all this like aside, like, yeah, I definitely have sympathy for, the woman that was involved in the situation. If there's something like beyond consensual sex, like what the report is, what the team policies are, like this truly was like a a harassment situation or something that's caused like lingering effects. Like, obviously that's very important. Also in all this, I don't want that to get lost in the situation. It's just like, yeah, man, this whole thing is very puzzling. It makes it very hard for people to draw like accurate conclusions, and everybody's talking like out of their ass for the most part about like what the situation is. And like,
yeah,
it's just not good for anybody involved in this. So like, if we just get like a little bit more clarity on what happened,
yeah,
and that would just save everybody in all this.
Yeah, no, there's so much speculation. It's one of those like, a lot of people, when they don't fully see all of the elements into a story, they'll come up with their own story, and it's usually the worst that we think of, because that's how just we like stories sometimes. There's a reason why reality TV is always like the highest rated shows on television, right? It's just trash we like to see sometimes. So kind of like burning wrecking cars on the highway, right? I think the one thing that I'm thinking about now is like, what if the Celtics, like, hey, we made the finals with Udoka, like that doesn't always happen. Like maybe we do want to keep him. Maybe they did talk with like Tatum and Brown and whoever and think like, yeah, we want to keep him and everything, right? Maybe the idea though, again, kind of going to this whole like, boring corporate HR thing, right? Is like, what if, they obviously can't fire the woman, right? Because if they fire her, then because he is a higher position than she is. I'm assuming. I don't think she. Then this is where we just don't know. But just thinking he's of a higher position than she is. Just that's probably what it is. Then they can't fire her, so maybe they're just waiting for her to find another job. I don't know, something stupid like that. Because yeah, with like. I'm guessing that him and Nia Long are now done now, right? I don't know if he
Yeah.
wants, yeah, probably, right? I don't know, because from my understanding is that he was contacted by the Celtics to end the relationship, right? And to like stop contacting her in their normal like romantic ways or whatever. He didn't do that. Like he still continued to advance on her. They were both contacted like, hey, please stop the relationship. Like this is inappropriate. And then they still, at least he did, from my understanding, still contacted her. So now I'm thinking like, is this like they're just trying to give her time, maybe also to like find a new job, make it not look as conspicuous of like, oh, you're just leaving because of this. Um, maybe they do want to. I don't know. Maybe they do want to spend the rest of their lives together. Maybe if that's the case, then maybe this is like, okay, Udoku, you did some stupid stuff. This isn't going to look good. There's going to be a lot of shit being said, but you're going to be suspended for for the remainder of the season. Do you love her? Great. Okay, you find a new job and everything. Udoka, you stay here. Because we need you, because that's how it works. Like, if you can do something, we'll overlook all your stupid, stuff in your closet. I mean, isn't that the whole thing? Like the hot girl index, right? Like the guys will put up through a ton of crap, right? A ton of crap, just because you're hot. If you're like a couple degrees less hot, okay, yeah, not as much, not as much. Like there's the hot factor. It's the same thing with like coaches, players, and leagues, right? It's just how it is. It's how we're trained at from people, right? So maybe the idea is that they're moving these pieces in order to keep Udoka, and then so she can find a new job and they can live happily ever after, and he's still a Celtics coach. I don't know, but again, we don't know because they're not sharing the facts, so we're making up stories.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like we've got to kind of continue to fill in the blanks with all this stuff. But I think even where you're getting at makes sense in theory. Like there'd have to be enough of a carrot attached to the stick for Udoka to stick around and to like wait to see what opportunities may exist within the organization moving forward. Because in today's NBA, in today's NFL, in today's MLB, there's always going to be money elsewhere. There's always going to be opportunity elsewhere, especially when you've proven yourself on the highest of levels. And like, if you're as good as Udoka is in his first year with the team, that, to a lot of our opinions were like a middle of the road team until they really, showed out on the defensive end and these stars took a leap. It's like he could do that for any other organization. So we'll see what materializes with this situation. But overall, my reactions off the bat were pretty strong, like kind of in Udoka's offense. But as these, stories and details have played out, I mean, like in other situations, it's good to like keep yourself in check before you, scramble to judgment right off the bat, because a lot of this stuff happens for a reason. There's a lot, like I don't think consensual sex would immediately lead to a year suspension unless there was more to it. And, even though it wasn't reported off the bat, like a lot of stuff pops up at the very end or along the way. So kind of keep yourself in check and, really hope that there's no psychological damage involved in this, or any sort of embarrassing information or anything else like tied to the woman involved, the women that could be involved within the organization, et cetera. It seemed like Brad Stevens was pretty shooken up about the whole thing, and just on the women's angle of this and everything else. So we'll see what happens, but glad we covered that.